Okay, it's the end of the session. This is Emory, and this is Piper, and this is their roadmap to success. And basically, we worked with both dogs a little bit. We started off in the session working with this guy and getting him to feel comfortable. Now, I'm going to talk about a whole lot of little tips, but I'm going to start off by just kind of going down dog by dog. And so for Emory, what we did was we practiced a little bit of just getting him practice coming towards me. So what I did is I put a treat on the I dropped treats on the floor and let him get a little bit closer to me each time. At first it's just just one step, and then take the treat and walk away. Then it became 2 steps and 3 steps. Eventually it was coming all the way to my foot, and eventually it was taking treats off of my foot. But each time we did this, I did not entice him to do it. Hang on there, buddy. We didn't entice him to do it. We let him kind of move away at his own pace, and I didn't point him out or encourage him to take them. The whole point of this is I want the dog to feel empowered so I can come and go as I please. If we do that, then the dog feels more inclined to want to come back to us, like we see right here. If I'm just holding him the whole time, then not so much. Okay, so we tossed the treats, got to the point where he felt more and more comfortable about that. Eventually what I did is I had the guardian pick him up and put him in my lap. Oh, you want the snickerdoodle. See if we can get you to sit. Sit. Sit for a snickerdoodle. That's a good deal. Yes. I'm just happy that you're not trying to flight. All right, now he is nervous. She is very nervous. Now for him, for having guests come over, one of the things we could do is when guests come over, meet outside and walk halfway around the building or a quarter part around the building, careful your finger, and then basically and have him in between the guest and you. And once it gets to a certain point, just kind of hand the leash to your guest, and then continue the walk where the guest is keeping using the leash the rest of the way around the walk. So now we introduce the walk. Look at that, I'm getting some kisses. So we're helping the dog by literally moving forward. The dog is associating something positive with the person. We're setting him up in an environment where the dog feels more comfortable because it's more open space and there's a lot of stimulation, a lot of distractions. When you put the dog on the person's lap, the person should just hold. I kind of just use my finger and I kind of hold the collar a little bit, but we don't want to restrain and hug them so much. We want to do as little restraint as possible. Hey, buddy, come. Passive training. And the idea is at the end, what I did is I kind of very gradually let my hands out like this, so I was no longer holding him at all, and I let him sit here. And I would like the dog to just kind of get down on their own accord. I ended up putting him on the ground. What I did is I picked him up. I started putting him down. As soon as he started wiggling, I stopped and held him there. I had to pull him back to my lap, waited for him to settle, did a second time, and then when I put him down, he walked away very calmly. We don't want dogs to squirt away. Okay, so that was, I want to say Avery, but it's Emory. And he really warmed up. When you first have people come in, one of the things you could do is have, for dogs, it's a polite way to greet, is for the human to come in and wait in the doorway. Let the dog come and sniff him and move away. Now, he was barking at a distance and moving away. And so what I did is I kind of kneeled down and I turned my back to him. I threw a couple treats out. He didn't want to take the treats at first. Eventually, he took the treats. And then eventually, because I sat there waiting, he ended up coming up and sniffing my butt. I was facing away from him, makes him feel more comfortable. I wasn't moving. I was keeping my voice kind of quiet. And so all those things helped make him feel comfortable. And then he came up and gave me a good little sniff. And then that in conjunction with the other stuff will help. But if we set it up by taking him for a walk first, we also burn off a little excess energy, which is also helpful. Okay, so now we have your turn. And she really just sat underneath the couch for the first hour. And I used a little bit of the same technique I used for him. I was throwing treats and getting her to come a little bit closer. She really come all the way to the edge of the couch, and then gradually I got her to come a little bit further. Eventually what I did was, though, I had the guardian pick her up and put her on my lap. We kind of accelerated the process a little bit. Now for her, because she likes to hide underneath here, I recommend the guardians get like a cardboard box or something we can block that area. Probably also going to need to block the area under the bed. We have a nice covered kennel here that she has access to. So we want her to have access to a place that she can go to where she feels comfortable and where she can move away. If we have any guests come over with kids, the rule is she's in her kennel. The kids are not allowed to interact with her, can't try to lure her out or anything. That's her safe place. Let me see. Now, we fitted her up with a martingale collar because she is wiggled out of harnesses. Now, as a Yorkie, they have brittle bones. They can break their neck, and so a lot of times people will want to use a harness, which is great, but some dogs can kind of wiggle and shimmy their way out of a harness, and she almost got away a couple times. She has not come back. If you have a dog that's a nervous dog, that's going to be a flight dog, we would rather trade off a little bit of discomfort if we need to have the right tool, unless it's using something like a prong or a pinch collar. Those things are evil. You should never use those. They're illegal in every country except for the United States for a reason. Okay, so one of the things we did, the martingale, I fitted her up with the right size, and so she won't ever be able to pull her head off. It's called a no-slip collar as well. And then what we did was I showed the Guardian, we went on a little bit of a walk. She wants to squirt all over the place. So what we did was we kind of kept the leash short. We keep it, we want to assign a side for each dog. So maybe Avery is on the right side, or Emory, excuse me, is on the right side or left side because she's on the right. Whatever you want, there's no right or wrong, but give each dog a right or left side so they know when I'm walking, this is my place in the formation. And this way we can also correct them independently if we need to. Now I showed the Guardian how to use the special twist of the martingale for her. Make sure it's behind both front legs. It should be right in the armpit. Don't let it drift down here. So if it drifts, move it back up. Make sure you always go through the hole, the second loop, towards the head. Never go towards the butt. Otherwise it won't relax as well. And for the correction, we want to preferably have a quick tug up and relax it. The Guardian was a little bit slow and a little bit more pulley, as we want more of a pop or a tug on the leash than a pull on the leash. And pop it and then take the tension off right away. The Guardian was holding the tension a little bit at the end. So pop it and immediately relax it. Try to keep your arm nice and relaxed. The other thing the Guardian was doing is she's sometimes holding her leash up like this, and that puts tension on the leash and will activate the opposition reflex. So we could practice from going from here to the elevator. It was only a dozen paces or so, but she started squirting all over the place. So as soon as she starts panicking, squirting, stop. Wait for her to settle down, and when she does, then take another step or two. Wait, and as soon as she panics and pulls, stop again. We want to understand that pulling on the leash indicates that I'm going to stop. And eventually we get to the elevator. Ideally, we'd like to have the dog go through first, or second, excuse me, but for a dog with psychological problems with her, we just want her doing anything that moves forward. When we got outside, we took a little bit of a walk, and again, she kept on squirting. We paused and did that back and forth, and eventually she squirted less and less. She started staying on one side. Now, if you're down in the hallway or you're in a building and she keeps on trying to go to your left, just walk with the wall right here on your left shoulder, and that prevents the dog from being going around. We want her just to develop new neural pathways and get a habit of walking on the right side, so that's just normal for her. She looks nice and relaxed now. Okay, so the other thing that we did was we walked around the building, and as we did that, we just kind of, again, did the same approach, stopping every time the dog starts getting nervous or excited, or pulled too much on the leash. Now, when we got done walking, we kind of sat down. I tethered her on to one of the posts outside, and we sat down. Now, at first, she was kind of in this panic mode, which is kind of what she was doing in here when I first put her on the martingale. And that's kind of her fight or flight is activated. She just wants to run away. Well, after a while, she kind of settled down, and then I had the Guardian go sit down close enough where the dog can come and sit right next to her, but not be on top of her. Now, at first, she was dry panting. Her mouth was open. Her tongue was down to her knees. She was really stressed out. But as we sat there, because sitting for us is more, we're going to be here for a while. Standing means it's only temporary. So once the Guardian sat down next to her, that really helped her within probably 2 or 3 minutes. She sat down and then she laid down. The panting stopped. She actually started sniffing. Remember, we want to see her using her nose. So what I'd like the Guardian to do is to start practicing every day, at least one walk with her. Multiple walks would be better, because it shouldn't take you longer than 5 or 10 minutes to walk around the whole building. And the more that we do this, the faster we can help them get there. Then the other thing I'd like the Guardian to do is, Avery is sitting on her lap and about to fall asleep. Emory, I will get it by the end of this video. And so basically, I'd like to get one of those stake tethers. We have a nice little lawn in front of the apartment complex. Tether it, be far enough away from the door where she doesn't perceive that to be a threat. And then one of the Guardians should sit there and with a book or an iPad or whatever it is, and sit there and wait for her to lay down and be relaxed. And we want to make it like a good 30 to 60 minutes. And if we can do that once a day as well, then it becomes kind of a comfortable area, and she gets comfortable in the routine. And she should start laying down faster and faster, panting less and less. And eventually we get to the point where we can feed her treats. Now, when she's able to take treats, when you notice somebody pulls up in the parking lot, have a treat ready. And as soon as they start walking towards, you have to time it just right. We don't want to give the treat too early or too late. If you let the person get too close, you put it in her mouth, she probably won't take it. If we give it to her too early, she'll finish it before the person gets there. Counter-conditioning a principle where we basically associate a negative with a positive reinforcer like a treat. So if you time it out, maybe they get right off when they get to the curb at the sidewalk that's walking in, you pop the treat in her mouth, she's chewing it as the person's walking by. Right as the person passes, ideally she finishes the treat. Then the person now is walking away. So when the person's approaching, or kind of quasi-approaching because they're really going inside, she's getting the best treat she's ever had. As soon as the treat is gone, the person's gone. So it's kind of contrary to what the dog's looking for. So what we should start seeing, is her settling down faster and faster, relaxing faster and faster, less squirting around on the leash, and eventually just kind of walking with a nice little trot and starting to sniff the ground and barking at the squirrels and doing all the nuisance things that I usually am paid to correct dogs from doing. For a real nervous or scared dog like this, we want the dog to do as much dog stuff as possible. We'll come back and we'll fix it later. Right now, we just want her to learn how to live and be a dog again instead of being this shut down, scared, petulant, not petulant, but petrified mode. We can also do other things like, eventually feeding her out there wouldn't be a bad idea. Something else we can do is once she does get to more relaxed, we can get that Parmesan or shredded cheese and sprinkle a little bit on the grass. It's gonna be hard for her to get all of it. That makes her work for it, especially if you do that, like if she's focusing on people coming and going, sprinkle some of that on. She sees them, but she's getting the grass. It takes her a little bit left to center and helps her focus on that as opposed to being petrified of the people that are approaching. Okay, so now for potty training, the guardians have some accents in the house. For potty training, we want to associate the action with the command word. So as soon as, I'm going to go over potty train with him, and then I'll do potty train tick for her. For Emory, what we want to do is when he starts to pee or poop, we're going to say business or whatever the one-word command is, a new command word, and say it in a normal tone of voice as soon as he starts to pee or poop within 3 seconds of him starting. When he finishes, pop the treat in his mouth and say the word business a second time. After a while, you can say business inside and he'll bounce around. That means that he's made the association and yes, he has to potty. It's nice to be able to pull the dog as opposed to just take him out and then find out they don't have to go. The guardians have bells hanging by the door, and smarty pants that they did not hang it from the door knob, which is the classic mistake most people make. So you hang it next to the door. What we do, once the dog can associate the command word, then we take one of the jingle bells out with us, keep it clamped so it doesn't make any sounds. As soon as the dog starts peeing or pooping, we gently start ringing it. We ring it the duration of the dog peeing or pooping. When it gets done, we clamp it, we go over there, pop a treat in the dog's mouth, and as soon as the dog starts chewing it, we gently start ringing it again for the duration of them chewing it. So after a while, they start to associate and conflate those two. Then the next step is, after about a week or two of doing this, then you go to the door. Every time you go to the door, you just take the dog's paw and nudge it, or you put a tiny dab of peanut butter on it, and once it licks it, then you open the door. Make sure the dog's obviously on a leash. So as soon as the jingle bells, then we go through the door, we go outside. For her, what we want to do is cheat a little bit. She does not pee outside. She only pees on puppy pads or on the carpet in here. So what we want to do is take her, when it comes to dog food, the temperature is more important to them than the taste. The smell is the most important thing. So what we want to do is take some dry kibble or canned food or whatever. Just want to put about a quart of hot water in there. Now, before we do this, we want to prep her for this. So maybe at first we put a couple teaspoons of warm water in with her food. To get her used to drinking a little bit, and eventually by the time we start doing this outside, she should already be used to lapping up the water to get down to the dry food or the wet food or whatever it is, solid food. And eventually when we get to that point, then we want to give her about maybe a half a pint or maybe close to a pint of warm water with her food, put her in her kennel, give her about 15 minutes to relax afterwards, then take her outside, and I would sit on that blanket and do the tether and be able to be out there for at least an hour. Dog's digestive process is usually 45 minutes for a liquid, so she has to drink like close to a pint of water, or however much is appropriate for her, and then she gets to eat her food. Dogs typically need to go, the 3 times they're most apt to need to go is right after waking up, 5 minutes after eating, and 15 minutes after having playtime. So if they're too farting around in here and all of a sudden they stop, and it's been 15 minutes, take them out for a play break. And one of them is in here and just all of a sudden gets up and sprints out of the room, a lot of times that means they need to poop. And I like just to take them out frequently just so that they have more access and it's more likely that they're going to potty. And again, no corrections. We're just going to make a big deal out of it when she does it. Now for her, because she's so petrified, hopefully by the time we're doing this potty thing, we've already practiced for a week of having her sit outside and she's nice and relaxed when people are wandering around and comfortable with her environment. When she starts sniffing the ground, you're putting that Parmesan cheese and she's sniffing the ground looking for the Parmesan cheese, after a while she'll start looking sniffing the ground before you even put it down there. That means that we're getting to the point where we need to be. So then for her, when she potties, we could pick her up. For dogs, height, elevated status comes from a higher position. So when she pees and we pick her up, again, we should say the same words though. As soon as she starts pee or poop, we say business. We hang out a little bit. I'm not pretty enough to be in this by myself. And then as soon as she gets done, we say the word business and pick her up. And then we can pet her a little bit as long as she's not being nervous. And after a while, we create that positive association. Yes, what a sweetheart you are. She's such a pretty girl. Okay, so those are some of the tips and tricks that I went through with both dogs for their psychological issues about being fearful. I guess activities. But there's a lot of little things that we do. One of the things the guardians were startled to find out is anything your dog is doing when we pet him is what we're reinforcing, including unbalanced states of mind like fear, stress, and anxiety. So every time when we come home and the dog's excited, we pet it, we're going to make it more excited or more fearful or more stressed out. The stress, I believe, comes from a lack of structure, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But for the dogs, what we want to do is avoid petting them when they're nervous or anxious. We can touch them and let you know, I'm here with you without amplifying it, but don't pet. Whenever possible, when we're petting, I try to pet under the chin. We facilitate that nose went up. When a dog feels good about itself, his nose is parallel to the ground or elevated. If we pat a dog on top of the head, a lot of times their nose goes down. So so we can caress and we can scratch, just whenever pat. And if all things are equal, try to scratch under the chin. When you're saying a command word, just say just the command word, not good or go or bad, just the command word itself. Be careful not to baby talk, and be careful to only use one version of it. Come here, over here, your girl, dog's name, whistles, tap my thigh, all mean come to us as humans, but to dogs, those are all unique command words. So you might want to make a list of the official designated command words. The only times that they would be different is the command word to eat and the release word to be released out of a stay, or maybe to permission to go out of a door or something like that. Those are words I give a unique one for each dog. The rest of the words should be the same. Try to come up with fun command words because dogs can read facial expressions. So if you're laughing when you say something, the dog's going to feel better about it. Now, for the dogs, before we get into some of the other tips, teaching the dogs new tricks and skills can really help. And so I'd like to see the guardians trying to make an effort of trying to teach the dog and look for the easiest possible. For some reason, people pick really hard dog tricks. The whole point is get one, make the dogs both understand it. They feel better about you because you taught them. You help boost their self-esteem. Now you have a way to redirect them. It helps their confidence. There's a whole lot of issues or benefits to it. So what we want to do is try to do that once a week. So each week, maybe the guardians take turns. One week, one guardian A teaches them how to roll over. Next week, guardian B teaches them to bang your dad or whatever it is. Yes, you're asking for a little attention. I'll give it to you. Normally I wouldn't, but for dogs, you have a psychological session. He had more of a behavior session. I would make him earn it. Okay, but speaking of earning it, for dogs, lack of rules and structure can actually give them a perception that they might be equals to us or in charge of us. And like I mentioned just a second ago, she nudged me a little bit with her nose. She wanted attention. She's asking for it in a very cute way. But if I pet her when she's nervous, I'm going to make her more nervous. If I pet her on demand, I tell her, yes, you're in charge of me. When you tell me what to do, I listen. So from now on, what I'd like the guardians to do is practice petting with a purpose. So the dog comes up and nudges me. Instead of nudging, I'm going to say sit. When the dog sits, I'm going to pet her on the chin and say the word sit and just the word sit. I'm going to pet for 8 hours after that. But the dog can't tell me what to do. After a while, the dog will start sitting in front of us to prepay for attention. When it does, make sure we recognize and appreciate that. A lot of us train our dogs to misbehave because that's the easiest and quickest way to get our attention. So we need to be cognizant of this, and when the dog offers a behavior we like, we do recognize and reward them for doing so. Now, I also have the watchword paycheck. So I come in the room, see one of the guardians petting the dog's standing, I say paycheck. That means I think you may have forgotten to pet with a purpose. That person should stop petting, tell the dog to sit or come or lay down or whatever, and pet him, say just the command word, and then tell the other person, actually I asked him to sit, you just missed it. That's okay. And you can pet as much as you want. Now, like I said, after a while they're going to start prepaying for it. But this leads me to what I call passive training, which I would do right there, which is kind of a weird lay-down position. Passive training is simply waiting for the dog to offer a desired action or behavior that you like, marking it with a command word, and petting it within 3 seconds. So every time the dog comes over to you, pet it and say come, which is what I did earlier in this video. Every time the dog sits next to me, I pet it and say sit. Every time it lays down, I pet it and say crash. I taught my dog to stretch this way on command. Every time he'd stretch, I'd pet him and say stretch. Now I can say stretch and he sticks his butt in the air, waggles his tail, and stands up and does a big yawn, and he'll do it 10 times in a row. Teach my other dog, Quest, how to grumble. When I'm teaching him to speak, sometimes he barks, sometimes he goes, when he does that, I pet him and say speak, or grumble, And so now we get to the point where I say grumble, and he goes, he talks a little bit. It's funny. You can name all of your dog toys. When the dogs eat, I would give each dog a unique command word for eating. So when Piper's eating, maybe her word is porridge. Any word you want. So PP makes sense. So when she takes her first bite of the food, we say porridge. She hears porridge, there's food in her mouth. When Avery hears porridge, there's no food in his mouth. And Emory, Jesus. And eventually, those words mean something specifically to each dog. Now, petting with a purpose and passive training are both things that are going to take a little bit of practice, but once you get in the habit of doing it, every time you pet your dog, you're really doing a mini training session. You're doing it without even thinking about it. You're also teaching the dog, these are things you can do that make me happy. And the dog will start to offer those behaviors more and more frequently. Now the dogs know what they can do to make you happy. They feel better about doing it, and that will help increase their self-esteem and lower their cortisol in their blood. Another thing we can do to reduce the cortisol in the blood is to actually start enforcing rules consistently. We have a tendency to think of rules as a negative, as being mean. For dogs, the more rules we have, the more they see us acting like leaders, which is important. Also, we shrink their world a little bit, so they don't have to worry about who's coming by outside or the sights out. There's a sound out in the hallway. I have to let everybody know because I'm in charge around here, but I'm insecure. So, and because the cortisol is in their blood, they're amplified. So the more that we enforce these rules and boundaries, the more the dogs start seeing the humans got it under control. I don't have to worry about the car door slamming. I don't have to worry about the guy in the hallway. If there's a problem, my humans will let me know there's a problem with it. So to start this out, I usually like to start by enforcing rules consistently. One of the rules would be not allowing the dogs on their furniture. Dogs like to climb on top of the humans. That's kind of an indication that the dog's not respecting them as an authority figure. Now, if I invite the dog up, that's different. But right now, the dogs are doing the invitation. Height matters for dogs, like I mentioned earlier, about picking her up after she potties. So if we let dogs sit the same height as us, that's one of the ways that we say we're equals or we're peers. If the dog climbs on top of us, that's one of the ways the dogs kind of claim things. And so the dog can be saying, you belong to me now. I was going to say something else. It wasn't very PC. But basically, so one of the rules I usually say is no furniture. Now we have dog beds in here, but one of the things I would recommend the guardians do is get a big dog bed for the dogs to sleep on together and putting it right there in front of the TV. From the dog's perspective, we're looking at them all day long when we're watching TV, when we're really just watching TV. Now, I like to get one that's like a cushion like this. If you get one that's kind of like a duvet cover, sometimes if I toss a treat out, they can't see it. And I want them to be able to see it right away. I like a light cream or a light gray or a light white color, or white color, because dogs are colorblind. Their eyes are not very good for dark colors. So if I put a dark treat on this dark gray, they might not be able to see it. Also, I want to avoid patterns because patterns are hard for dogs' eyes as well. So solid color. I like the Sealy Posturepedic, they're memory foam ones. They're not really memory foam. It's eggshells, egg crate shell things, but they will hold their rigidity, and you can unzip the shell and wash them. I find they're the cheapest to get on Groupon. I would get one big enough for both dogs so that they can actually start sleeping together. That's one of the things that I actually enjoy watching my dogs do, but it's a very communal activity for the dogs. Mm-hmm. I always do that when I'm taking away the furniture. I always give a dog bed in the same proximity, so there's a little bit of status in the dog bed, not as much status as there is here though. Okay, other rules. When one of the guardians sits right where I'm sitting and she puts her food here and eats, and the dogs are right here. That's very inappropriate in the dog world. To be within 7 feet of someone who has a high value item or food is a way of challenging for that item. So what I would do is make the dogs back up. Now, we don't really have a line of delineation, but you might want to get remnant carpet and put a piece right here in front of this. So if there's an accident, it cuts up some of it up, but it also makes a very easy line of delineation. So the dogs might want to be on that carpet when I'm eating food. The rest of them can come and go, but if I'm eating, they're not allowed there. So I'm going to use the first, second, and third escalating consequences for that to march and move the dogs away. Start out with the first one, go to the second one, go to the third one if you need to. And as soon as they get to the edge, stop walking. So if I'm marching towards the dog to make it move away and the dog gets to the edge, I don't have to go all the way to the edge. I stop where I'm at. Whenever the dog gets off, that's what we're looking for. Gets off the carpet. So another rule would be not being allowed in the kitchen when we're eating food, having to sit at the door before we let him in or out, and again, sitting for attention and all the rest of those fun things. Let me see. Now I promised to go over nipping and biting with the guardians. So that we have some nipping and biting or mouthing. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So dogs sample things in their mouth. It's very natural for them to put things in their mouth. We often say, like dog does it, we still pet them while they're doing it. So make sure we're not doing that. I have 3 things I do when a dog mouths me or nips me. First thing I do is I yelp like a little girl. I don't want to do it too loud because I'm enjoying this, but yelp, really high-pitched, prepubescent girl-sounding yelp.
Okay.
And then we retract and we freeze for a second. When dogs play with each other, just like they did outside, one of them was too hard, they yelp and they freeze for a second. That's a way of saying, hey, that was too hard. I'm sorry. Are you okay? Yeah, just don't do that again. Okay, you ready to play? Yep, and then they go back to it. So do that. If that doesn't work, the other thing I do is I don't have any with me, but I have like a bone, the bone that actually doesn't look like a real bone. It looks like it looks almost like a bow tie, like the skeleton bones that you would see on a costume. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So they make nylon bones that look like that. They also have antlers. So what I do is when I come home, I put one of those things in my pocket. Anytime the dog starts mouthing or nipping me, I would pull it out and I would tease the dog a little bit. Don't just put it in the mouth because they want to chew on you. Kind of tap them here a little bit, and they go here, tap them here. Tease them so they're kind of trying to get it, and eventually let them latch onto it and let them pull it away from you. Now it becomes a trophy. Don't just give it to them. Make them work for it a little bit, and then they take it and they go over and chew it over there. Now what we did is a couple things. We redirect the dog's attention to appropriate chew toy, and we made the dog earn it so it became valuable to them, build up their confidence, because I took it away from the human and I went over there and I chewed it. And then they go to their dog bed. So when you get these, go to Groupon, or not Groupon, Chewy's a good place to get them, Amazon's a good place to get them as well. They have flavored ones. Get one that's bacon, one that's chicken, one that's barbecue, so that way they have different ones. And as soon as you do that, always pick up another antler and put it in your back pocket, so you always have one with you. Now, if you do both of those first two tactics and the dog doesn't show any interest in this, and just is, the more you yelp, the more aggressive they get about it, a lot of times that means they're tired and cranky, they need a nap. Now, something else we could do is what we call a negative reinforcement or a negative punishment, which is actually deducting something in the equation. I'm just laughing because Emory could not be more relaxed on his guardian's lap. So basically, negative punishment is actually to deduct something in the equation. So if I'm sitting here and the dog bites me and I immediately get up and leave and I go behind a door and I close the door behind me, well, biting the human, I was kind of playing or roughhousing, but as soon as I did that, the human just left. Not like a minute after me doing it, but within that 3-second window, the human suddenly leaves. If that happens consistently, after a while, the dog starts to identify, well, this equates the end of playtime, so I'm going to stop doing this. Okay. Anything else? Make sure the guardians are, when I feed the dogs, I put the food down. I don't let the dogs within 7 feet, using those escalating consequences. Then the humans who's feeding them should eat something in 5 or more bites. It can be one chip. It doesn't have to be a real meal. It can't fake it. It can't be a smoothie or coffee. They don't understand that. When they're done, then I would let Emory, we'll get it by the end of the session, eat first. Now, when he goes up, sniffs his bowl, he's on the clock. If he stays there, he's got like 3 minutes to eat. If he sniffs it, walks away, without any sympathy, I pick up the bowl, dump it in a container, put the empty bowl back down. He'll go and lick the empty bowl. Now, because he likes to pick up his bowl and go around with it, we might want to get smaller bowls or bigger bowls or metal bowls that are in one of those elevated deals so that he can't pick it up and go around. And so he'll probably go and lick it right away, and then don't feed him again until the next meal. My parents had a miniature schnauzer. She did not eat until breakfast of the 4th day, and I feed 3 times a day. Whoever blinks first is going to lose. So you're offering the dog the opportunity to eat. If they turn their nose up, no, you don't tell me what to eat. Okay, that's fine, then the food goes away. After a while, hunger becomes your ally. So don't cheat because you're only working at yourself. But if they're on medication later in life, they need to eat, or you're going on a road trip or something, they're like, I don't feel like eating, that's really difficult. So, and eating is one of the most primarily important activities for dogs. If we have spend a little bit of time, it only take about a week or two, and they'll just sit and wait. But now we have dominion over the food, and every time we feed our dog, the dog does see us as more of an authority figure and builds up more respect for us. Remember to always follow through. Don't walk around the dog, walk through the dog. Now, if the dog's sitting or lying down, you can walk around it. But if it's standing, walk through it so the dog understands if the humans come in, my job is to get out of their way. Let me see. And for her, we also talked about possibly taking her like a retirement community. There's a lot around town. I would call ahead of time and just say, hey, I have a dog. I'm training to be a therapy dog. We just need some nice laps to sit in. Now, we can set her up for success for this by taking her out for a walk. Now, she is spent because the walk we just did was overwhelming for her. So we want to get a week or 2 of these walks so she can actually walk like a normal dog without being spent. But then we can put her in a position to succeed. Before we take her to the daycare facility, we take her for a walk. Bring her back inside, let her, when she stops panting, then we get up and we go to the daycare facility. So that, or the adult care facility. So that way we burn off that excess energy first and then put her in a better frame of mind. And then we have the people and ask them, hey, if you just wait for her to lay down before you start petting her. And after a while, I just lay on people's laps and they give me these little massages. I like it. Make sense? There was something else I was going to say. Yes, she's nice and relaxed. Oh, putting her paws on me, that's also another sign of relaxation. If she's like grooming herself outside, for the outside, remember to bring that cheese. I talked about the cheese, right? But when you see her sniffing the ground or sniffing around, that's kind of what we're looking for her. Let me see, what else? We'd like to arrange to have some people come by. We don't have a lot of people coming by. Guardian's worried it might smell like urine. I did not smell any of it, so I think you're okay on that one. But basically just having people come over and ignoring her and having her experience being around them would be really beneficial. All right, now because of how nervous the dogs were, we really didn't get a chance to work with them as much as I would have liked, so we probably will need to set up a follow-up session. The Guardians just need to let me know. Now if you have any questions on the stuff that we went over that's in this video, stuff that you forgot to ask me about, or we went off camera, I want you to call me or text me. The number I called you from is my primary cell phone number. Program that one in your phone. Text me. I don't care if it's 6 years from now. I can usually help people with a quick phone call or text without even needing a second session. These guys might need a second session to actually start working on some stuff once they're no longer so fearful about people. But these are very rewarding sessions for me because we have a dog that's so supremely fearful of human contact. I really feel like I made a big difference in the dog's life when we get to the point where they can be nice and relaxed like this. Now you can see she's breathing. You can see her head moving a little bit, or I can feel her heart rate's accelerated a little bit. She's a little bit stressed out, but pretty relaxed. All right, this is Emory, and now I'm drawing a Piper. See, I by the end of the session. And this is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it, right?